My girlfriend's friendship with a male coworker took a dark turn. She calls him BBY, lies about naked pics, and denies cheating despite my heartbreak. I didn't cheat on you, she insists, but why was she hiding everything? Am I losing my mind or sensing betrayal? My girlfriend, 22, is probably cheating on me, 27, with her coworker. I know what I witnessed, but she continues to deny it. We have been together for nearly 3 years. Everything seemed perfect, or at least I thought it was. She changed her place of employment and has been working there for about 6 months now. She is quite introverted and shy, which is why she did not communicate much with her coworkers. Then she acquired a new female coworker with whom she formed a connection. This new coworker is extroverted and has no difficulty engaging with strangers. My girlfriend began to interact with her other coworkers through her. This is when they started to form friendships with a few other coworkers. They got along well and decided to meet on a Sunday to have a meal and chat, which seemed completely normal. The following week, she mentioned she was going to meet up with her female coworker on Wednesday because her coworker's parents were nearing a divorce, and my girlfriend wanted to support her. A few days later, she informed me that she was experiencing stomach pain. We had plans to celebrate my sister's birthday on Saturday, but she considered not joining us. However, after some discussion, she decided to try to come along. She seemed somewhat off the entire day. She was frequently on her phone, allowed my sister to sit in front, and did not want to ride every roller coaster due to her stomach issues. When my sister and I tried to get on the next roller coaster but had to turn back because it was under maintenance, we returned and saw her holding her phone to her ear as if she was about to call someone. Upon noticing us, she quickly put it down and stated that she was going to call her mother but could do so later. Her overall demeanor felt off, but I attributed it to her stomach troubles. The new week began, and when she visited me on Tuesday after work, she broke down and expressed her unhappiness, sharing several reasons for her feelings. I was also crying as it felt sudden and our relationship seemed at risk. She apologized, explaining that she had not communicated her feelings and had been bottling everything up. She acknowledged that we had previously agreed to speak openly about any issues. She requested some space to think things over, which made me feel suspicious and deeply hurt. I couldn't sleep that night, reflecting on everything and realizing that perhaps she was right. Maybe I had not been perfect in every situation. Therefore, I wrote her a lengthy letter of apology expressing my love for her and purchased some beautiful flowers. I was unable to give her the space she requested and wanted her to visit me again to discuss everything. Upon giving her the flowers and the letter, she appeared genuinely moved and we talked through our issues. It seemed like we were back on track and the next few days felt wonderful again. However, the following week, I came across something that made me feel incredibly sick to my stomach. I noticed a message from her male coworker on her phone through Snapchat in which he referred to her as baby and asked why she had not been using any heart emojis lately and if everything was all right. I was in disbelief. My heart raced and I woke her up to confront her about what I found, but she initially denied everything. The day before, she had sent a few photos of her new clothes, and I knew she had shared them with him through Snapchat as well. She had also tried on some lingerie, so it is possible she shared pictures of that. She wanted to take a picture of her dress from the back and I offered to do it for her. Initially, she hesitated but then agreed. While holding her phone, I noticed she received a new Snapchat from someone I did not recognize. The contact had no name, only an emoji. When I inquired about it, she provided a different name. It turned out that the person was the same male coworker who had called her baby. I clearly knew who he was. I confronted her again and she continued to deny everything. After discussing all of this and her ongoing denials, I insisted that she unlock her phone and show me the proof or I would find it myself. She resisted and refused to comply. I explained that her unwillingness to show me her phone only indicated that she was hiding something. I added that if she suddenly decided to reveal their chat after work, it would mean she deleted everything. We both went to work, but I returned home feeling ill. We communicated via text and she continued to deny everything. I then drove to her workplace to confront her and her coworker. They both lied to me. Eventually, she somewhat acknowledged that there had been something, but claimed it was initiated by the female coworker. I called her out on that, leading to her admitting it was indeed him, but she insisted that she had not really been aware of the situation. I know for certain that he sent her voice messages referring to her as baby. She did not have satisfactory answers for me. We met again after work. She was willing to show me her Snapchat, but all evidence of their communication had vanished. Conveniently, it seemed she got rid of any proof. She claimed that after I left they spoke and he decided he did not want to be friends anymore, so he blocked her. Yeah, friends. I did not believe her, so I had her test this with me. I had her block me, and indeed it automatically deleted our conversation on my phone. How convenient, right? When I questioned her about their WhatsApp chat, I knew they had been communicating there as well, but she claimed there was nothing to worry about there. WhatsApp was for ordinary conversations expected between colleagues. Snapchat, on the other hand, was for everything she wished to conceal from me. So what occurred? She showed me their WhatsApp chat, which was completely empty. I instantly recognized that she had deleted it and called her out on it. She stated they never communicated on WhatsApp, which I doubted. Later, she lied again by claiming she had deleted the chat 2 weeks ago, though I knew it had been removed that very day. From that moment forward, it was clear to me that she was essentially lying about everything. Her explanation for this entire situation. On that Sunday when she and her coworkers met, he noticed the scars on her forearms. He inquired about them and they discussed it. He offered her to reach out if she needed someone to talk to. Apparently she did. According to her, they chatted on Snapchat about self-harm. When I asked why she could not confide in me, her boyfriend, she replied that she did not know how I would respond and did not want me to worry, among other reasons. She explained that they talked about self-harm, and she expressed gratitude to him for being there for her, even sending a pink heart at the end of her messages. They continued to chat, and it seems they exchanged hearts at the end of their conversations. I told her that was an inappropriate action. She argued that they were not red hearts, which she reserves for me, but thinks it is acceptable to send different colored hearts to friends. I can understand this to a degree, but how can one transition from discussing self-harm to him calling her baby? I told her she had crossed a significant boundary, and if something like that occurred, she needed to firmly establish that boundary with him. Only after I said this did she claim she had done so. However, he did not call her baby just once. Even if she rebuked him, why did she still maintain contact with him, and why did she send him pictures of herself wearing her new clothes? Again, she tried on lingerie. She insisted that she did not send any pictures of her lingerie, only of her regular clothes. Regardless, even if there were no lingerie photos, why would she send him any pictures of herself? Those should be reserved for her boyfriend or family members, not shared with a male coworker. She claimed that she did not consider it a significant issue because they discussed her new clothing during their lunch break and she wanted to show him. According to her, all of this simply created an emotional connection. I was furious. What did she mean by that? To this day, she asserts that it was merely a friendship. They discussed self-harm and she felt understood. They became friends, but nothing more than that. She maintains that they never engaged in any physical activity. No kissing, no sexual encounters, or anything of that sort. She is adamant that she did not cheat on me. I still had doubts, so I asked to see everything on her phone and requested full access because I was concerned that she might have installed a different messaging application. However, this request was too much for her, and she refused to let me see her phone regardless of how many times I demanded it. She simply would not show me her phone. When we met the next day, she suddenly agreed to let me go through her phone. Of course, it seemed likely she had deleted more evidence in the meantime. I asked her how I could trust her after all the lies, and I expressed that I could sense she was being dishonest because I knew what I saw. She said that I have her word. However, after all those lies, her word meant nothing to me. I needed more assurance, something to convince me. To this day, she still does not concede to having cheated. I pointed out that if it were truly just a friendship with nothing more, she should not have to hide anything. She explained that she concealed it because she thought I would become upset or jealous, given that I often express concern that random men are solely interested in physical relationships with her. What a coincidence. That guy clearly desired more than just a platonic friendship. There must already be more than friendship if he is calling her baby, right? I am utterly exhausted. I am deeply hurt, trembling, crying my heart out, unable to sleep and struggling to eat. I love her unconditionally, I truly do. I know that I am a good person with a kind heart. I have always treated her well. Admittedly, I am not perfect and I have made mistakes too, but they were minor. Overall, I am confident that I am the best boyfriend she has ever had. The individuals who came before me called her names and one even physically assaulted her. Some important details about her include: she has experienced multiple relationships since the age of 12, meaning for the past 10 years, she has been in various short-lived relationships, always having another man ready immediately. She has previously harmed herself and has resumed doing so after a 5-year hiatus. She has no siblings, friends, or significant hobbies besides doing her nails. She was in a relationship with her last boyfriend when she made a move on me. I was aware of this and did not want to come between them, but I had been single for several years at that time, and I had never had a long-lasting relationship before, so I developed feelings for her as well. She informed me that she had cheated on 2 previous occasions. Moreover, she previously despised techno music, yet now she has a techno playlist. Guess who enjoys techno? Yes. All of this seems to present a very clear picture, and everyone I have discussed this with insists it is evident. Yet I still love her wholeheartedly with every fiber of my being. I truly want to believe her. I wish for all of this to be true and for me to be mistaken because that would mean she did not cheat on me. But how can one explain all of this? We still have not reached any resolution. I simply cannot bring myself to end things even though the signs could not be clearer. Or am I losing my mind? Is there truly nothing to be concerned about? Why does she lie about everything and keep it a secret? She insists that she still loves me and does not want to lose me. I am her future. Why does she continue to hold on to me? Her declaration of love and my tendency to overthink make me feel as though there is still hope. Perhaps I am just deceiving myself. She wanted space before, so I granted her exactly that. I told her to come see me again next Friday. She appeared genuinely sad and cried. I initially felt good, but now it is consuming me. I fear she may be using this free time to further cheat on me. Please advise me on how to interpret all of this. We have gone through so much in the past 3 years. We have always been there for one another. It truly felt like it was her and me against the world. We have shared immense pain but also many beautiful moments, and it hurts like nothing else ever has. I feel as though I am dying and I am terrified of the future as I cannot bear the thought of living in a world without her. She is my everything, my forever. Story 2. When my toxic ex reached out claiming he'd raise my child as his own, I lost it. You made your bed, lie in it. I texted him and my husband's estranged family to never contact us again. If that's what family means, I'm glad we escaped. Am I too harsh? I, a 29-year-old female, was in a relationship for 3 years between the ages of 19 and 22 with my ex-boyfriend, who is 31 years old. Towards the end, our relationship became rocky, and I felt as though I was the only one attempting to save it. I wrote extensively about it in my diary. I still write, as it is a habit I maintain that helps me, and one evening, after I completed filling it, I reflected on how poorly he had treated me in the past few months. The next day, I had a serious conversation with him in which I expressed my true feelings, stating that I felt he no longer loved me. He kept dismissing my concerns and made no effort to improve things. A few weeks after that conversation, his behavior suddenly changed almost entirely. He began showering me with compliments, bought me flowers, and kissed me at every opportunity. I was delighted, until I learned from a mutual friend that he had cheated on me during a boys' night out about 2 weeks prior. Cheating is an immediate deal-breaker for me. I am certainly not perfect, but if there is one thing I am, it is loyal. Loyalty is, in my opinion, the most important character trait a person can possess, and I will never forgive infidelity. I do not care about the circumstances. He did not take the breakup well. I simply messaged him, informing him I knew what had transpired at the bar and that he had 1 week to retrieve his belongings from my place and return my things. He failed to do so. He continued to plead for another chance, insisting that he loved me dearly. It did not matter to me. After 3 weeks of this drama, my best friend's older brother went to his residence to collect my belongings. He is like an older brother to me and is also quite intimidating. Initially, my ex was reluctant to give my things to him, but after some discussion, he finally relented. My life moved on. I was heartbroken but completed my degree a few months later. It was only then that one of his friends reached out to inform me that he was not coping well with the breakup and had started drinking almost every weekend, which escalated to multiple days throughout the week. He went on to tell me that my ex had dropped out of college and was now working a part-time job as a bartender. He also mentioned that since the breakup, he had been engaging in casual hookups nearly every weekend and sometimes even more frequently, usually picking up a girl after his shift. My ex expressed that he had lost all hope in love and meaningful connections. The entire message was much longer, but this was years ago and I cannot recall every single word, but it conveyed the essence of his struggles. Initially, I did not intend to respond because, quite frankly, why would I care? He was the one who chose to cheat on me and ruin our relationship, so I did not believe I owed him any response. A few weeks later, another friend reached out, and it was evident that the two had spoken beforehand because he stated that I was being cold, cruel, and heartless for not communicating with my ex and not offering him another chance. That was the first time I felt compelled to respond to a message, as I was both angry and confused. He had treated me terribly during the final months of our relationship, only to betray me afterward. I did not want to be with someone capable of such betrayal. I have always been a firm believer that having strict boundaries is important, and I will adhere to that principle. I do not tolerate cheating, and I am grateful that I ended the relationship. Fast forward to when I was 24, a friend from work invited me to a social gathering where I met my now husband, who is 32 years old. Initially, he was quite cold and distant, while I am also a very introverted person. Our first conversation occurred within a group setting where we rarely interacted directly. At one point, the topic of family arose, and I do not recall the specific question asked, but it revolved around his family, and he simply stated that he was no longer in contact with any of them. Gradually, the group conversation faded, and after consuming more drinks and warming up a bit more, he approached me and we began chatting privately. At first, we engaged in light conversation about ourselves, our interests, and similar topics. However, I felt a connection to him from the start of our private discussion. The conversation became personal faster than usual for me, given that I am an introverted and private person. Nonetheless, for some reason, it felt good to be open with him. Well, he is now my husband, so I suppose my intuition was accurate. I shared details about my previous relationship and its conclusion, which prompted him to open up and explain that the reason he no longer had contact with his family was that his brother had an affair with his girlfriend. After he broke up with her, the girlfriend and the brother became a couple, and his family essentially told him to come to terms with the situation, claiming they were in love and deserved to be in each other's lives, advising him not to take it personally, as the heart wants what it wants. He provided more details about how the situation unfolded and the conversations he had with his family. At one point, I found myself tearing up. I am not a particularly emotional person and I do not cry easily, but something within me stirred when he shared that. I genuinely felt a sense of compassion for him. We continued talking and began dating shortly thereafter, and well, the rest is history. We were married last year, and honestly, my husband is the best person I have ever met in my entire life. A couple of months ago, I became pregnant with our first child, and we could not be more thrilled. I announced my pregnancy, and well, the news reached both my ex and my husband's family. I have my ex blocked on every social media platform, and his number is blocked as well, while my husband's family is blocked by both him and me. The first message came from his mother, who created a new Instagram account to congratulate us and tell my husband she could not wait to become a grandmother. My husband did not see the message at first and only discovered it 2 days later. When I tell you that my husband was so furious he was shaking, I was honestly surprised he did not break down in tears over it. Initially, he did not respond to his mother. He was far too shaken. I let him vent to me and we discussed the entire situation. Not even a day later, his brother reached out, informing him that his relationship with his ex-girlfriend had not worked out. Because, well, guess what? She had cheated on him. What a surprise. He also expressed his desire to reconcile, saying he missed his older brother and that their parents had been mentioning him frequently, indicating they missed him too. It is interesting that his mother never mentioned that in her message, and his father did not even reach out. That is when my husband broke down and cried. I am unsure how long I held him, but I was infuriated that these terrible people had the audacity to reach out. As if that was not enough drama for one day, the day his brother contacted him was also when my ex decided to message me. Essentially, he was expressing how miserable he had been since our breakup, claiming he still loved me and that not a day went by without thinking of me. Towards the end of the message, he indicated that although I was pregnant with another man's child, he would be willing to step in and raise that child as his own if I was ready to leave my husband and reunite with him. The sheer audacity. I was filled with rage. I do not believe I have ever been so angry in my entire life. I sent messages to all of them, my ex and my husband's family, telling them all to leave us alone, to never contact my husband or me again, and that we did not want any of them near us or our baby ever. I sent each individual a personalized message. I expressed many harsh sentiments, telling each of them they were horrible people. The messages to my husband's family differed from the one I sent to my ex due to the varying situations, but fundamentally, I told them all to leave us be and that they were despicable individuals who did not understand what loyalty means. I asserted that they made their own beds and could lie in them and much more. The messages were all relatively lengthy. I also pointed out that they all knew precisely what they had done and that they were responsible for their own choices. My ex knew how badly he was hurting me by mistreating me for months, and he was fully aware of my stance on loyalty and what he had destroyed when he chose to cheat. When messaging my husband's family, I reminded them that their son, their flesh and blood, had not had contact with them for almost a decade due to their mistakes. They were too preoccupied with being involved with their other son and his ex-girlfriend, who is nothing but a terrible person. Overall, I informed all of them that they could lie on their deathbeds, and I would not care, nor would my husband, that I despised all of them and would never allow my child to be around such people. If that is what family means, then I am grateful my husband and I escaped and established our own family. We have my family, my parents, and my extended family. I have a fairly large family with numerous aunts and uncles, so my child will grow up surrounded by a significant support network. Before I sent the messages, my husband reviewed them and was more than satisfied with what I expressed. He fully endorsed everything I had to say. I love my husband immensely and feel terrible that his family attempted to reinsert themselves into his life. No one seemed to care that his own brother had betrayed him, and their parents did nothing to intervene. Now they want to reach out because of my pregnancy. They did not contact us when we got married, became engaged, or moved in together, but suddenly, now that a baby is on the way, they all want to be involved again. As for my ex, I am surprised he did not attempt to reach out sooner when he claimed to love me so much, yet now he expects to step in and raise another man's child. I genuinely do not care what happens to any of these individuals. I desire peace. I want peace for my husband and our baby. However, some people in my life read the messages I wrote and told me I was excessively harsh and cruel and should have worded it differently. Honestly, I considered this for a while and do not believe I was in the wrong, but as more people share that I was overly harsh, I am beginning to question everything. Was I too harsh? Summary: my unfaithful ex and my husband's toxic, estranged family want to reconnect after learning that I am pregnant. Story 3. My mom introduced me to her boyfriend John, saying, "You can't tell the dads." Little did I know, this would be the start of a chaotic childhood split between my biological fathers and her endless string of questionable relationships. What happened when Chris found out? Heads up before I begin, this is going to be a lengthy post. I mention this disclaimer because I am quietly hoping my story ends up in a Reddit video. I would love to hear what Dabney has to say about it. The story begins in 1987 when my mother was 17 years old. She became pregnant and had her first child, my sister, Amy. She married her boyfriend at the time, and then they promptly divorced 6 months later. A few years later, around 1992, I believe, she met Chris. She and Chris married and soon welcomed my oldest brother, Arlo, in 1996. In 1998, they had my second older brother, Oliver. Now here is where it starts to get interesting. By the year 2000, my mother became bored. She did not approach Chris to express her unhappiness. She did not tell him that she wanted to invigorate their lives. No, she went out and found a boyfriend, Lucas. And what happens late in the year 2000, she becomes pregnant and informs both men that the baby is theirs. This is where I come in, baby girl number 2. For a time, she manages to make it work. She shuttles me back and forth between the two households. I am not quite sure how it functioned, but it did. And then, guess what? She is pregnant again. Again, she tells both Chris and Lucas that the baby is theirs. She gives birth to my younger brother, Elijah, and Lucas finally asserts himself. He tells her that he wants to live with his children. So what does she do? Does she take the sensible route and choose between the two men? Of course not. Somehow, in what may be the greatest con of the 21st century, which I still do not comprehend, she persuades Chris to allow Lucas to move into their home. Now, to be honest, I do not remember much from my early childhood up until I was about 8 years old. I know my mother moved out for a time, but I was unaware of the reason. I inquired about it a few years ago, and I think she mentioned that she was ill. I am not certain. I am fairly sure I would remember something like that, but I digress. She moved in with her brother Matt for a while. She would even bring me along, and we would eat pizza and watch Twilight repeatedly on an air mattress in Uncle Matt's basement. I loved it. That ended when I turned 9. She had been taking me to Uncle Matt's less frequently, but she claimed it was due to her overnight shift at work. She was employed as a hospice nurse for a woman named Linda who was paralyzed from the neck down. I had met Linda once before, so this seemed entirely believable to me. On a Monday morning, she came to our house, where Chris and Lucas were still living together, raising her 5 children while caring for her father before school. She informed me that for the upcoming weekend, she planned to take me to where she had been disappearing to. My 9-year-old mind thought, that is a really strange way of saying we are going to Linda's, but okay. Friday afternoon arrived and she picked me up after school. We drove for 45 minutes and pulled up outside a house, and when we entered, guess what I saw? A man. My mom stated, this is John. I looked up at him and said, "Hi, John." Then I turned back to my mom and asked, "What is going on?" She looked me in the eye and replied, "John is my boyfriend." But then she introduced the words that would dictate the rest of my life. "You cannot tell the dads." Before I continue, let me clarify, yes, Lucas and Chris are both fathers to me. This scenario persisted for 3 years. My mother would pick me up after school and on weekends, and my dads had absolutely no idea where she took me. They simply knew I was going to my mother's house. They did not know her address or anything, and to be honest, I am unsure how she managed to get away with that. I spent more than half my time with my mom instead of my dad's to escape my abusive brother, but that is another tale. We lived with John for 3 years until they separated. My mother never disclosed the reason when I was younger, but when I asked a few years ago, she revealed it was due to John's alcoholism. She could no longer keep pace with his drinking and had to slow down. As soon as she and John parted ways, she immediately began dating Uncle Matt's wife's adopted brother, Daniel. We moved into a rather questionable apartment and things were good for a time. I truly liked Daniel even more than I liked John. He was much easier to converse with and he actually made an effort to spend time with me. And of course, yet again, I had to abide by the 4 sacred words: do not tell the dads. Things were fine for a while until one summer night when I could not sleep. It was 2 a.m. and I was watching Big Brother reruns on my television when I heard a disturbance outside my window. We lived on the first floor, so my bedroom wall was at street level. It turned out that the noise was due to a stabbing right against my bedroom wall while I was watching Big Brother. We moved out by the end of that week and relocated to the third floor of her best friend's drug house. I have no definitive proof it was a drug house, but it certainly was. And again, things were fine for a while, until I overheard them discussing John. I went out and asked why they were talking about him, and my mom instructed me to return to my room. However, they continued to raise their voices and my mom was becoming upset, so I asked again. I inquired, what is going on? Why are you discussing John? Is he back in the picture? My mother responded, no, well yes, but not in the way that you think. I asked her what she meant and she told me, John is outside right now with a pair of night vision goggles looking in at us. After that incident, things were all right for another few months. Until one day Mom picked me up and brought me over. I saw Daniel's car outside, but the tires were slashed and his windshield wipers were removed. His Xbox was in the yard along with half of his clothes. Again, my mom would not disclose the reason. A couple of years ago, she revealed it was because she walked in on him smoking crack in the living room. At this point, after 5 years with her boyfriends, after being absent for probably 7 or 8 years total, she decided to move back in with the dads. Because yes, they were still living together. They were not friends, they were not lovers, and they were nothing to each other. It was strange. So she returned home and decided to get a job at a local Dunkin' Donuts. It did not take long before she came home telling me about Greg, who would not leave her alone unless she allowed him to take her to breakfast. It was not long before she stopped coming home again. About a month and a half later, a snowstorm was approaching. She informed me she wanted us to get snowed in at Greg's since I would not have school. Fed up with her nonsense, I told her that sounded wonderful and we went. It was instantly awkward. We had an uncomfortably quiet dinner and my mom insisted that I take a bath for some strange reason. I am 15 now. I had not taken a bath in about 10 years, only showers. Then she practically force-fed me Benadryl and I slept for 15 hours straight. Remember this moment because it will be relevant later. The next day after I finally woke up, Mom and I watched Twilight, and then she brought me home. Months later, I went out with my boyfriend at that time and my mom allowed me to use her car. He texted me the next day stating he thought he left his wallet in the car and asked if I could check for it, so I went digging under the seat and pulled out a green box. Curious, I opened it and there was a large amount of marijuana inside, which was still illegal at that time. I put the box back, retrieved my boyfriend's wallet and went inside. My mom asked me, so you found the box, huh? I nodded and inquired, do I want to know where you are getting it from? Greg was selling it to her at a discount. That night when she gave me all the Benadryl, it was because they wanted to smoke and she did not want me to know about it. Now this is where the story pauses for a while. I am 16 at this point and our next event occurs when I am just shy of 21. Mom and the dads are still cohabitating. I am in college, my older siblings have all moved out and sadly my mother's father has passed away. It is just me, my mom, Lucas, Chris, and Elijah living at home. One day, my mom and I are out, and she tells me she has something to share. She looks at me and says, I just wanted you to know that Chris and I have decided to give the marriage another chance. I am astonished, especially since this man still does not know about her boyfriends. She refuses to discuss it at all and insists she wants to leave it in the past and forget it ever happened. I simply tell her that I am happy they are trying to resolve their issues, as what else am I supposed to say? But there is a catch. She instructs me, do not tell Lucas about it though. So it is another game of do not tell the dads, but the other man is my other dad. Mom and Chris got back together for approximately 11 months until she created a large scene at a significant life event. I will not elaborate for privacy reasons, and he finally concluded that enough was enough. He left to stay with his dad for a couple of weeks, and when he returned, he began the process of filing for divorce. After all those years, after everything, the final straw broke the camel's back. They divorced and Chris moved away. My mom and Lucas still live together. It is just the two of them now. They are not together and they cannot stand each other, but they depend on one another. And that is where we currently stand. There is more to my story, particularly concerning my personal relationships with friends and Elijah's abuse, but this is all I am sharing for now. Perhaps if people are interested, I will provide more updates, and I am also happy to answer any questions in the comments. Thank you for reading. Story 4. I'm a dad who lied my way into a second child. I did not want you, I did not want this, became my nightly mantra. While my wife struggles with motherhood, I just sit back and game. I often think, how did it come to this? Time for a reckoning. This feels terrible, and it feels like I am avoiding the consequences of my actions, but I cannot help how I feel. My wife and I have been together for 9 years, married for 7. Early in our marriage, I believed I was ready to be a father, so we began trying for a child. Soon, she became pregnant, and suddenly I panicked. I realized I was not truly prepared to be a father, and I did not want that. I did not want the sleepless nights, the hard work, or the responsibility. Therefore, when she suffered a miscarriage, I admit I felt relieved. My wife never really acted as if she was particularly eager for motherhood. Her approach was mostly, if it happens, it happens. However, after the miscarriage, she had the opposite reaction to me. She desperately wanted to become a mother now. We had many difficult conversations where I explained that I did not want to sacrifice everything that parenthood required of me. I loved her and our life together, and I believed that children would only complicate matters. For her part, she expressed that she felt broken and less of a woman because she could not bear children and did not know if she ever could. I told her that it was entirely the wrong reason to bring life into this world. It felt very selfish and as if she would regret it. She, for her part, threatened me with divorce. Eventually, I caved. We began trying again. Almost immediately after I breathed in her general direction without protection, she became pregnant once more. The pregnancy went smoothly, but the birth was an absolute nightmare. It took forever, the anesthesia failed, she tore her pelvic floor, she experienced preeclampsia, and she almost died. I was terrified that I would lose her, and I dreaded the thought of raising that child on my own. I never wanted to endure that experience again. Yes, I realize it was obviously worse for her, but the difference is that she went through all that for something she genuinely wanted, whereas I felt as though I was being dragged into it. But as soon as our daughter was born, I cried. She was the most beautiful, amazing thing I had ever seen. I loved her immediately. Still, raising her has been really hard. Initially, I had to do it practically by myself as my wife needed to recover from the complications of the birth. Our daughter got sick often and there were many sleepless nights. When my wife finally began to help, she never stopped complaining. Perhaps there was some postpartum depression involved, I do not know. Still, when our daughter was 7 months old and my wife continued to complain about how hard and awful everything was, I snapped at her. She had been harping on me for months about how she could not be truly happy without being a mother, why I was doing all the work and why she was always miserable. Complaining about me is one thing, but about our daughter, constantly labeling her as a difficult child, calling her a little goblin, etc., how was any of that her fault? I told her I told you so, which went over about as well as one would expect, so I did not bring it up again. Besides, my wife was earning more than I was and our parents were not around. Mine passed away and hers are not in contact due to some serious issues. So at one point, I quit my job to raise our child. Yes, I quit my job so that she could experience the true joy of motherhood. I only returned to work when our daughter was 3. By that point, things had calmed down a bit and we were finally finding our balance. It was actually a lot of fun. Our daughter is really cute and it is delightful to take her places since she enjoys everything. It is also fun to be treated to free desserts and praised for raising such a great child. I was happy again. After a rough patch, I could finally say that I loved my life. Then my wife began complaining that it was not fair to only have one child. She needed a sibling just as my wife has. I countered that as my wife keeps reminding me her sister is a very selfish person and is never there for her. Bringing another child into our lives would be even harder since our daughter is not yet old enough to care for herself. It would be hell and she would be miserable. For a while, I stood my ground, but then her sister became pregnant with her second child and the threats of divorce resurfaced. Once again, I caved because now it was not just about her. It meant she could take my daughter away too. Well, once again, we became pregnant very easily. This time, at least, the birth went well, but look, I am not proud of this. It is not comfortable for a parent to admit, but my son did not evoke the same reaction. I felt somewhat numb when he was born. My son's fussiness does not help. Whenever he starts crying at night, all I can think is, go to sleep. I did not want you. I did not want this. I admit, I am not taking on the bulk of childcare myself this time. My wife is still on maternity leave and is absolutely miserable, but I am not stepping up this time. I think my allowing her to avoid facing how difficult raising a child can be last time is what led us here, so instead I checked out. I lied about work being really busy and having to work long hours to get out of taking care of the baby at night. Instead, I sit at my work desk, playing games on my laptop or watching Netflix for a few hours each day before going home. When I am home, I keep complaining about how exhausted I am from work. By the time I finish cooking, putting our daughter to bed, and doing the dishes, it is time for bed. Whenever my wife asks me to get up for the baby more, I explain that I really need to be at my best for work, so I cannot. When my wife mentioned her maternity leave ending 6 months here, I simply shrugged and said she would have to consider leaving her job because I did that once and I have no intention of doing it again. I enjoy my job, I am performing well, and I have absolutely no desire to leave it. We could hire a nanny if she wants. She became quite upset with that suggestion and talk of divorce arose, but at this point she has used that threat once too often. If she believes she can do better on her own, I wish her luck. As I already mentioned, I even suggested hiring a nanny. She outright refuses. So at this point she can sleep in the bed she has made, or at least she would if our youngest would let her get any sleep. Her sister, unsurprisingly, is busy with her own children and is completely unavailable. So this is where we stand. I engage in underhanded tactics to carve out time for myself every day so that my wife can fully experience the joy of motherhood while she is absolutely miserable. I hope this at least discourages any thoughts of a third child. I know what some of you will say, I should have communicated honestly, and well, I have tried that repeatedly. All I received were explanations about how she could not possibly be happy without being a mother, and then only if we had one child. If my attempts at communication only lead to threats of divorce, then I hope she is happy now that she got what she wanted. But it is not what I wanted, and I am done. I am not genuinely seeking advice, and perhaps I am the worst person ever for doing this, but I just wanted to share my story. Thank you for reading. Edit: to everyone suggesting I should not have done that. All right, let me just hop into my time machine and address that. Thank you for the great advice.